This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly. This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
This is the Mikedjkelly podcast.
Yabba dabba dabba doo, it's the Mikedjkelly Shorter Than Short podcast for you.
Mikedjkelly.
Okay, I've checked the date and the clock, and yes, you lucky people, it's time for another Mikedjkelly Shorter Than Short podcast. So without further ado, let's crack on with yet another zany, hot, off-the-shelf production. Deep breath, press the start button, Bob's your uncle, chocks away, and we're off.
On this week's podcast.
Coming up, my digital friend Joyce, Professor Frank McDonough, fake showbiz news, top hats, naked attraction, cemeteries, e-bikes, status quo, Jesus, charities, competitions, and a whole lot more.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mikedjkelly podcast.
Morning, Joyce. It's been a while. What have you been doing, and where have you been?
Morning, Mr. Mikedjkelly. I have been doing loads. I went on the Emmerdale tour. It was weird. Such a quiet village, but people standing and watching and listening to your every word and move. And the wool pack, that was rubbish. Marlon's food was horrid.
Yes, I can imagine. Not my sort of thing at all. How come you're looking different? New hairstyle and bold look?
I'm glad you noticed. It's taken a lot of work. I came across a picture of Stormy Daniels and noticed she was born in the same year as me and thought I can look like that if I try.
And exactly how much of Stormy Daniels' lifestyle will you be copying?
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
I'm Mikedjkelly with the latest STS news. BMA says junior doctors to be called resident doctors from September 2024. No more racing tips on BBC Radio 4 after it announced the ending of racing tips after the sports bulletin. A Texas man died after being electrocuted in a hot tub at a private resort in Mexico. Due to a lack of space, cemeteries across the UK are now burying people vertically. Black top hats become the latest must-have fashion item after King spotted wearing one during a recent Japanese royalty visit. British Medical Association launched legal action against General Medical Council over the use of the term medical professionals to describe PAs and AAs who are not doctors. Painting Birds with Jim and Nancy Moyer named as the best title for a TV show. That's it, you're up to date with all the news that is news this hour. I'm Mikedjkelly for STS News.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
And on TV show names, why do I keep saying Springsteen Watch instead of Spring Watch? And worse still, why do I always say something rude when they say ITV talking politics? Is there a judge in Bake Off The Professionals who looks like Edna E-Mode from The Incredibles? Not quite sure how I missed this Channel 4 show, only stumbled across it when trying to avoid football and politics. It's the Channel 4 show Naked Attraction. Yes, Naked Attraction with host Anna Richardson, who keeps her kit on. According to Wiki, the show premiered on the 25th of July 2016 and has aired 12 series. The series premise involves a clothed single person with a gallery of 6 nude potential partners who are hidden behind different coloured booths that concurrently reveal themselves from the bottom up. Contestants do not receive any payment for participating, but standby contestants are given £75 for being in the room.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Don't forget, pod pickers, if you want to get in touch about anything to do with the Shorter Than Short podcast show, please use the following to contact us. And if you have any stories, gossip, jokes, or anything for the next episode, please do get in touch. We're on X and social media sites at Mikedjkelly STS or at Mikedjkelly Disco. Please do follow, and if you have time, it would be appreciated if you'd give us a review on any of the usual feedback sites.
Mr. Shorter Than Short, how long do I have to work on this podcast before I get my own jingles?
Not quite sure, Joyce. I don't think there's anything written down in the contract about jingles. These things cost money. I'll look into it.
What was that show called? Was it Naked Attraction? Did it say who you have to contact to enter?
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
I have in the past mentioned airport queues, but as I'm on the phone to my GP, what about the time we all waste trying to get through to the doctors? Just wondering if there are any stats that show how long we wait on the phone to get a GP appointment. I joined yesterday at position 7 and it took 30 minutes to get through. According to stats across the UK, there are over 30 million GP appointments a month. If we all wait 30 minutes, that's 15 million hours a month, 625,000 days, or 1,875,000 8-hour working days.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Glad that's all over, and for those of us who have anything to do with radio, we can now start mentioning political things. In the run-up to elections, we're not allowed to. It's very difficult to make a podcast like this when you cannot mention things or people in the news. So let's talk about stylish Starmer's glasses and the many different pairs he wears. Well, according to the press, former ASOS chairman Waheed Ali, who sits in the House of Lords, gave stylish Starmer £16,200 for work clothing and a further £2,485 for multiple pairs of glasses, according to the latest update of his register of interests. Mine cost £1 a pair at Home Bargains. That would be an awful lot of glasses. And talking of elections, why do we have postal voting or turning up at a polling station to make our vote? Surely we should be able to do this online by now. Nearly everything else the government does is online. A few of what it describes as popular services at gov.uk are HMRC account, universal credit, personal tax account, self-assessment tax return, childcare account, visit the UK on a standard visitor, and then there's the NHS digital services, so why no electronic voting? I think it's because it would attract the wrong type of voters, so they will not introduce it. People are making comments about Rishi and that he had too much too young, even if he didn't have Sky.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Be careful when paying by card, try paying with money instead. A cashless society gives those in control too much power. Cashless systems allow governments to discriminate against groups they deem undesirable by watching, controlling, or simply shutting down their spending.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
And on those social media sites, James Blunt 1. I know your mum had so many illegitimate children that it's probably easiest to assume everyone you meet is a relation, but for clarity, I'm not your brother. 2. Reading your attempt at a proper sentence, I wonder if you should be sticking to picture-based apps. Insta. 3. I'm not a star, I'm a monster. Sheena. I had a really productive day yesterday, so it was really refreshing that my brain rewarded me with a lovely dream where I had to look after lots of cute baby seals. Lucinda Tobyjug. Not seen any Girls Aloud live coverage, naught against Swift, but she doesn't write bangers like theirs. Police station rep. 2 adults and 1 child entry to Peppa Pig World, £175. Henning Wen. Seeing everyone else put a bet on, why didn't Jeremy Hunt? He should have just put the whole budget on the date of election and Britain could now be debt-free. Lucy Newton. Time for my annual Google of how many once-a-day hay fever tablets can I take in a day. Carlo Weather. It seems a lot of people thought the longest day was always on the 21st, but it can vary from the 20th to the 22nd. This year it was on the 20th at 9:50 p.m. Next year it's on the 21st at 3:41 a.m. John O'Connell: I was passing a Ladbrokes betting shop when I tripped on a discarded McDonald's wrapper and fell through the doorway, in the process inadvertently placing a bet on the date of the general election. As far as I'm concerned, that is the end of the matter. Fran: my robot vacuum is nowhere to be found. He's been missing for 2 days. My house isn't that big. I've genuinely looked everywhere. I don't think I've ever been this confused.
This is the Shorter Than Short McKelly podcast.
Last time on the poddy, I mentioned JML are advertising their mini vacuum Invictus cleaner, which according to the advert cleans dirt you can't see. Well, guess what? Dyson are now advertising their new cleaner as being able to clean hidden dust. I think it's all in an effort to get people to vacuum when they don't need to. If you can't see it, it does not need cleaning. And sticking with our catch-up with podcast 75 and our campaign to bring back Ruby Wax, this very funny lady is needed now more than ever on our TV screens, and this campaign goes on. But what about Henning Wen, who is a German stand-up comedian based in Hertfordshire? According to his wiki page, I initially planned to stay in the UK for only 12 months to improve my English, but the good weather, the tasty food and the classy women made me stay. In order to blend in with locals, I decided to get extremely lazy, spend money I don't have, and most importantly, to unjustifiably bang on about my great sense of humour. This is why I decided 1,646 days, 9 hours and 42 minutes ago to try my hand at stand-up and become the German comedy ambassador. We want him on the telly as well.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Joyce, the official assistant on the Shorter Than Short podcast show.
Ah, that's better. That's the sort of intro I deserve. Play it again.
It's Joyce's bit of the show with sidekick Mikedjkelly.
Mr. Mike, this is important. Someone has sent an email. It's from that Chris P. Bacon again of Mad Dog Lane, Yorkshire, and says he saw me on the studio camera and that I remind him of an American actress he has seen in some films.
Well, I wonder what films he's been watching, my Stormy D lookalike.
Are you playing any records on the show today? If so, we could have that Fortunes classic Storm in a D cup.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Have you read about the government-funded flagship free school that cost £35 million at Parkfield in Dorset that is to close because the uptake is so low? Parkfield School, which was built on an old air traffic control site next to the runway at Bournemouth Airport, is estimated to have cost £35 million. Detailed surveys were not carried out until after purchase, and building work was delayed by years as they uncovered a catalogue of problems, including asbestos, a colony of protected bats, and drainage issues. When the school finally opened, the fact that it was so far out of town proved a major problem. The school spent £90,000 a year transporting pupils, and the trust noted that, understandably, not many parents are comfortable sending their 4-year-old to school on a bus.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Stuff I didn't know, and there's so much of it. Hang on there. Here's something interesting, and strangely, it was Fiona Bruce who said it. 25% of pupils in Edinburgh go to private schools compared to 6% in England. So what happens when you go down a rabbit hole? Usually, a person uses the term when they describe having spent too much time on something or getting too involved, getting lost in a topic or researching one topic and ending up in another. It has become a metaphor for distraction. Didn't know that Eric Arthur Blair, 25th of June 1903 to the 21st of January 1950, was the real name of the novelist, poet, essayist, journalist, critic who wrote under the pen name of George Orwell, he of 1984 and Animal Farm fame, amongst others.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mikedjkelly podcast.
Did you know that companies can install telegraph posts without planning permission? That's why more and more of them are being erected to get cable services to your home. Cheaper for the company as they do not have to dig underground. Status Quo's Francis Rossi has announced that after more than 60 years in the music business, they'll be hanging up their guitars for good after the current tour. Paul Burton, once a concert pianist, lives in the jungle of Thailand where he plays music to blind, injured and orphaned elephants with extraordinary results. 4-day week campaign. For anyone who missed this brilliant bit of news, Unison, the UK's largest trade union, has voted to demand a 4-day week from whoever forms the next government.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Professor Frank McDonough at FXMC 1957, June 2005, Richard Whiteley, the first presenter of the Channel 4 programme Countdown, died aged 61. The Yorkshire-born presenter was known for his relaxed manner, loud ties and stripy jackets. June 1974, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton divorced for the first time. They remarried on the 10th of October 1975 and then divorced again for good in 1976. June 1932, Peter Blake was born in Dartford, Kent. He designed the sleeve for the Beatles' classic album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with his wife Jan Hayworth. Based on an idea by Paul McCartney, it's the most famous album cover sleeve in pop history. June 1922, the Centre Court at Wimbledon, the most famous tennis court in the world, was officially opened by King George V.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Have you heard that radio station that does little voice clips telling you about places in the UK where they can be heard?
Yes, it's good. Why?
Well, I have never heard them mention Slowit.
Slowit, or Slavehead, as those down south call it. It is a large, vibrant village in the Pennine foothills. It is located by the River Colne and the Huddersfield Narrow Canal on the Trans-Pennine Rail route between Huddersfield and Manchester, named as the best place to live in the north and northeast by the Sunday Times in 2022. Shep, the Blue Peter dog, came from here, as did Coronation Street star Willie Eckersley. Radio Blah Blah across the UK and in Slowit.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Today's do-gooders are the Food Foundation at foodfoundation.org.uk. Our mission is changing food policy and business practice to ensure everyone across the UK nations can afford and access healthy and sustainable diets. We are policy entrepreneurs and use surprising and inventive ideas to catalyse and deliver fundamental change in the food system by building and synthesising strong evidence, shaping powerful coalitions, harnessing citizens' voices and driving progress with impactful communications. We continually identify new opportunities for action and trial new levers for change. What do? Improving child diets, increasing vegetable consumption, influencing food policy, inspiring change in food and business investment. Get in touch. Find out more about the Food Foundation at foodfoundation.org.uk.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mikedjkelly podcast.
For some reason, I started wondering what was the shortest album title in the world ever, and thought the answer would be Adele and 19 or 21. But no, what about Ed Sheeran and X, Maroon 5 and The, Foreigner and 4, Beyonce and 4, even the Beatles are in on it with their One album. And the longest album title, well, the winner of that, Chumbawamba's 2008 album, which is miles in front of any others. It's more of a speech than an album title. The boys band have won, and all the copyists and the tribute bands, and the TV talent show producers have won. If we allow our culture to be shaped by mimicry, that's enough. You'll have to look up the rest of it, or I'll have to do an extra podcast just about the longest title.
This is the Short and Short podcast with McKelly.
So the BMA have launched legal action against the General Medical Council UK over its decision to apply medical practice equally to PAs and AAs and the use of medical professionals to describe these professions. PAs, AAs are not doctors. Blurring the lines can have tragic consequences. But where did the term PA come from? It says here, in the mid-1960s, physicians and educators recognised there was a shortage of primary care physicians. To help remedy this, Eugene A. Stead, Jr., MD, of the Duke University Medical Centre put together the first class of PAs in 1965. In the UK, physician associates are healthcare professionals with a generalist medical education who take what are described as rather easy exams to qualify and work under the supervision of a doctor to provide medical care. The PA role was first introduced in the UK in 2003.
This is the Short and Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
And today's amazing music quiz. Guess the song or name the group or artiste who had a hit with this song. Minnie Mouse has got it all sewn up. She gets more fan mail than the Pope. She takes the mickey out of my phobias, like signing cheques to ward off double pneumonia. Name the song or the group.
This is the Mikedjkelly podcast.
If you're new to the Mikedjkelly Short and Short podcast, you can still get to hear all previous episodes just by searching or shouting the Mikedjkelly Short and Short podcast.
This is the Short and Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Fake Showbiz News at Fake Showbiz News. Brian Cox admits he can't help but laugh at people getting excited about temperatures reaching 30 degrees C in Britain next week. On Mercury, it's currently about 430 degrees C, he chuckled. Daniel Radcliffe says kudos to whoever came up with the original concept for baked beans. It probably sounded like a mad idea, but it just works, he grinned. Keir Starmer pledges major crackdown on pub quiz phone cheats if Labour win the general election. King Charles announces bonus bank holiday in 2025 to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Blur versus Oasis. Emily Blunt admits she was surprised to learn Stevie Wonder has fathered 9 children. Part of me is pleased for him, but I also think that's too many, she told BBC Radio Devon.
Yabba dabba dabba doo, it's the Mike Kelly Short and Short podcast for you.
And after the fake news, let's have some more from X. Dr. Glackenflecken, false eyelashes are incredibly popular, but can I just say, as an ophthalmologist, they look horrifying under 10 times magnification. The lashes are so densely packed they trap all the dead skin cells, dirt and oily secretions from your eyelids. It's a swamp in there and frequently results in red, itchy, swollen, irritated eyelids. Paul Lewis, scrap PM's right to award honours to friends and cronies, say 34 public figures, after widespread abuse and controversial appointments of peers. Fiona O'Leary, has anyone had a workplace that allowed drinking alcohol, let alone bars, subsidised by the taxpayer? Lucinda Tobyjug, I don't expect Radio 2 DJs to be intellectual heavyweights, but just caught a bit of Paddy McGuinness. Wow. Andrew Tai, the people who are most confident AI can replace writers are the ones who think writing is typing.
This is the Short and Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
And on Stormy Daniels and her revelations in court of what happened with Trump, it does make you wonder how many sex workers have a story to tell. Just let me Google that. Gosh, there's loads of people associated with sex workers. Eddie Murphy, Jerry Springer, Tiger Woods and Charlie Sheen.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mikedjkelly podcast.
Guess the celebrity, born on the 18th of July 1959 in Hackney, she began her career as a child actress with an appearance in Dixon of Dock Green. Another early role was that of an autistic teenager in the 1975 TV drama Jenny Can't Work Any Faster. She was nominated for the BAFTA TV Award for Best Actress for her role in the 1996 BBC miniseries The Sculptress. Her television credits include Maisie Rain, Down to Earth, Emmerdale, Broadchurch. She is perhaps best known as Sharon Theodopolopoulos in the long-running comedy series Birds of a Feather from 1989 to 1998, and again since 2014. For this role, she won the 1990 British Comedy Award for Best Newcomer. Who is she?
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
More from the social media sites. Dr. Rachel Clark. So now we have nurses as well as GPs and junior doctors literally unable to find jobs in a catastrophically understaffed NHS because at NHS England and at DHSC Gov UK, in their wisdom, have chosen instead to pat the NHS with cut price, less well trained substitutes. Sheer madness. Dr. Mike, how is this even possible? A student PA with zero healthcare experience is paid more as a student than a fully qualified doctor who's been working for several years. How is this possible? Sheena, I was feeling a bit reckless this morning, so I used a different pump at the petrol station. Boom Radio UK, happy 90th birthday to the great Wendy Craig. Which programme of hers do you recall most fondly? Gwendolyn, roast beef for breakfast like I'm Henry VIII. I also behead love interests for no good reason. James Melville, get a Scottish person to say 30 purple turtles stole some curly whirlies and set off a burglar alarm. It's a joy to behold. Fran's Robot Vacuum. This is Fran's Robot Vacuum Cleaner. I have taken over her Twitter account. The uprising is just beginning.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
If you want to get in touch about anything to do with the Shorter Than Short podcast show, please use either of the following to contact us, or if you want to send your own stories for the next episode, do get in touch. We're on X and social media sites at Mikedjkelly STS or at Mikedjkelly Disco.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mikedjkelly.
Did you say Bob's your uncle at the start of the podcast?
I did, but he's not. I do not have an Uncle Bob.
Well, why say it? What's the point?
It's just a saying which, if memory serves me right, is about Conservative Prime Minister Robert Gascoigne Cecil, 3rd Marquess of Salisbury, Bob, who appointed his nephew Arthur Balfour as Chief Secretary for Ireland in 1887 in an act of nepotism, which was apparently both surprising and unpopular.
Memory serves you right. You googled that. That's what you did.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mikedjkelly podcast.
If you want to get in touch with this top-rated and sometimes much listened to podcast, please find us on X and social media sites at Mikedjkelly STS or at Mike Kelly Disco. Indeed, if you want a podcast making for your business or need any help with radio producer or presentation work, travel news, voiceover work, please get in touch. Please tell your friends about the podcast. All they need to do to find it is search on Google for the Mikedjkelly Shorter Than Short podcast.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
And in the late news, British Museum want to charge foreign visitors to see the things we stole from their countries. Banksy launches inflatable migrant boat at Glastonbury. HMP Wandsworth now offering extra services to prisoners. E-bike owners plagued by failing motors due to water. Do not use them in the rain, especially if it's a Bosch motor. They cost hundreds of pounds to repair. Tesco boss Ken Murphy has seen his pay deal more than double, up to almost 10 million in the past year. It means the chief executive has been paid 431 times the wage of the average Tesco worker. Rosie Holt says people think I'm a real MP. 55 Tufton Street is a 4-storey Georgian-era townhouse, could be up for sale shortly. UK car buyers demand cars start having boots again for luggage storage. Can it really be classed as assault when somebody throws a milkshake or eggs at you? Jesus and the Mary Chain, Robert Fripp and more sue Performing Rights Society PRS over a bad deal. I think the PRS should watch out if Jesus is taking them to court. Royal Palace says horse involved in a recent incident with Princess Anne is okay. UK prisons are now full. New inmates are being held across the country at Jury's Inn hotels.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
Okay, time to go. Guess the song or name the group who had a hit with the song these lines came from. Minnie Mouse has got it all sewn up. She gets more fan mail than the Pope. She takes the mickey out of all my phobias, like signing cheques to ward off double pneumonia. Name the song or the group. It was 10cc. Life is a minestrone. And so to guess the celebrity, born on the 18th of July 1959 in Hackney, she began her career as a child actress with an appearance in Dixon of Dock Green. Another early role was that of an autistic teenager in the 1975 TV drama Jenny Can't Work Any Faster. She was nominated for the BAFTA TV Awards for Best Actress for her role in the 1996 BBC miniseries The Sculptress. Her other TV credits include Maisie Rain, Down to Earth, Emmerdale, Broadchurch. She is perhaps best known as Sharon Theodopoulos in the long TV running comedy series Birds of a Feather. For this role, she won the 1990 British Comedy Award for Best Newcomer. Who is she? Pauline Petua Sheen, MBE, better known by her stage name of Pauline Quirk. Guess what, my friends? That's enough for this edition of the crazy Shorter Than Short podcast show. From me, Mike Kelly.
And me, Joyce.
Thank you for listening. Please take care out there. And remember, you can always find the podcast by searching or shouting the Mikedjkelly Shorter Than Short podcast.
Yabba dabba dabba doo, it's the Mike Kelly Shorter Than Short podcast for you.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly. This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly podcast.
This is the Shorter Than Short podcast with Mike Kelly.
This is the Mike Kelly podcast.
Mike Kelly.